I've recently been playing through Silent Hill 2. Okay, that was a bit of a misdirect, but don't worry, it makes sense. So while playing Silent Hill 2, my fiance asked me what I thought the scariest game is that I've played. And after some thought, I decided that Amnesia the Bunker is the scariest game that I've played. And that's no slight against Silent Hill 2. It's an incredibly atmospheric and has scary moments. It, like many horror games, rely heavily on scripted events in order to create that feeling of being scared. A well-timed handcrafted jump scare can be incredibly effective, as the developer has had time to perfect the lighting, the sound, and the pacing of the jump scare to achieve the biggest scare it can. But I don't think it's the most effective way at creating actual moment-to-moment fear. Games like Silent Hill 2 are more akin to one of those haunted house tours where out-of-work actors in cheap costumes jump out and try to scare you. While this can be startling and generally quite spooky, you know it's all been rehearsed and set up to scare you in a way that will likely follow a certain pacing. It's predictable. Whereas Amnesia the Bunker is more akin to being lost in the woods alone after watching the Blair Witch Project. It's probably fine. The likelihood is that there isn't anyone else here right now, but what if? You might find your way out without running into anything, but you might not. It's unpredictable. If I were to cosplay as a psychologist for a moment, I'd say that this is likely due to our brains being more comfortable knowing that a predefined scary thing is going to happen, over the potential for something scary to happen that is undefined. It makes us fill in the gaps with our imagination. The fear of the unknown is greater than the fear of the known, even if the known is still scary. There's a level of certainty that when I walk through the creepy apartment building in Silent Hill 2 and a creepy music sting plays and the music hushes, that I know something is about to happen, and a good deal of fear is alleviated by the fact I know it's going to happen. Whereas in Amnesia the Bunker, aside from a handful of what I presume to be scripted events as they occurred in a formulaic way, the majority of the time, whether you run into the stalker hunting you or not, is completely random. Or at least it feels that way. I'm not sure it's as random as it lets on, but it's inconsistent enough to the point that you can never be certain of the stalker's movements. Each time I went to set foot out the safe room, I'd make sure to save, check my inventory, check the map, double check my inventory, check my fuel, save again, just to be sure. I was stalling, because I knew as soon as I unlocked that door that what was about to happen wasn't going to follow the usual conventions of a horror game. I remember heading out to one of the far reaches of the bunker to top up on fuel, and on the way there not encountering the stalker at all, but the amount of tension and fear I felt was palpable, even though nothing had happened. Whereas in Silent Hill 2, I could quite happily jog the halls of the apartment building, knowing that I was going to be jump scared. But the sequence I was about to experience was designed by someone trying to scare me. Its design is intentional, and because it's intentional, it's easier to get a feel for. There were times in Amnesia the Bunker where the stalker would disappear for long periods of time, only to then hunt me relentlessly, even though I hadn't made any progress to the story. So I couldn't correlate my behaviour and progression in the game to the behaviour of the stalker, which removes your ability to control or predict the situation. Whereas in Silent Hill 2, after your first fight with Old Pyramid Head, the game knows you're likely low on ammo, and you know that the game knows this. So you know it's more likely going to go into a lull to focus more on narrative beats, to allow you to build up your supplies, which for the most part it does. So there's an ebb and flow to these types of games which diminishes its ability to surprise you. Amnesia the Bunker, on the other hand, doesn't give two shits if you've got no supplies. If it decides it wants to send the stalker your way, it will. Or it may decide to hold back, let you sweat it out. But the key element is it doesn't give anything away. Any semblance of control or pattern recognition you usually have is gone. There were times I would just stumble into the stalker, no music cues, no environmental set pieces, he would just be wandering around quietly and I'd so happen to bump into him. There would be no intentionally placed corridor for me to run down with a handcrafted room with a hiding place. The game was essentially shrugging its shoulders at me. It didn't plan that, I didn't expect that, so it creates these incredibly organic moments that you dread as it demands far more from you as the player, as you have to come up with the solution on the fly. The constant tension of the unpredictability of the stalker is further compounded by the fact that you are constantly forced to keep moving, as running out of fuel will only make avoiding the stalker harder and more terrifying as you're forced to fumble around in the dark. This kind of gameplay disincentivizes a more mindful and considered approach, whereas you can slowly shuffle your way around the sleepy town of Silent Hill as slowly as you like, checking every corner for sentient mannequins. Okay, So I realise I've dribbled on for a while now, so here's a quick visual summary of what I've been saying. The horror genre is at its best when your ability to influence, control, or predict the situation you find yourself in is taken away from you. And I think Amnesia the Bunker embodies that better than any other horror game I've played. Plus, as an Englishman, the premise of being stuck in a bunker with a Frenchman is pure terror.